Hey everybody! So we're continuing along with our season previews for the 2019-2020 season, and today is New York Islanders Day. Before we get into the video, I just quickly want to say, if you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, please hit that subscribe button and follow along for all the hockey content. And if you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit that like button. That really helps out with the channel a lot. So the New York Islanders last season were, in my mind, one of the biggest surprises in the NHL, finishing second in the Metropolitan Division, sweeping Pittsburgh in the first round, and going to the second round before losing to Carolina. But after losing John Tavares last summer, there was a lot of talk about the Islanders, really, being one of the worst teams in that division, and there weren't high expectations for this team, and all they did was come out, play spectacular defense, get a Vezina-level goaltending season from Robin Lehner, and end up being one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. So, for this year, heading into this upcoming season, I don't really know what to think about this team because I really think that we could see a significant drop-off from them this year. They have a lot of talent. They have a lot of great players. I think they can repeat what they did last season, and that's certainly a possibility. I also think we could see a significant decline in their defensive play. I don't think they're going to get the same level of goaltending that they did last year, and in a division like the Metro, that could be enough to drop them out of a playoff spot completely. The Metropolitan this year, to me, is completely wild and probably the most intriguing story heading into this season is just which teams from the Metro are going to make the playoffs and which ones aren't. Because when I look at the Metropolitan Division and I look at the moves like the Rangers in New Jersey and Philadelphia, and I look at the moves that those teams are making, and I look at the Metro and I think all 8 teams in the Metropolitan Division think that they're playoff teams, think that they should make the playoffs this year. Even the teams that weren't very good last year have made moves like New Jersey and New York that now they have them thinking, okay, we should be going to the playoffs this year. 8 teams from one division cannot get into the playoffs. It's a maximum of 5, meaning there are going to be some very disappointed Metropolitan teams at the end of the year. And, much like New Jersey, I think the Islanders are kind of a crapshoot this year. They could finish as high as second in that division again, or they could miss the playoffs completely. And I really, don't know what to think. They could go either way. When we look at their lineup here, and for the lineup, I used a combination of cap-friendly depth charts and daily face-off line combinations to put these lines together. These lines are very fluid and movable, and I think, especially within the top 6, you could see a lot of flip-flopping among players as far as which wings play with which center and whatnot. Even their defense pairs, I went by average ice time from last season to try and put the defense pairs together. Because again, you could see Leddy playing with Boychuk, you could see Leddy playing with Pulock, you could see Pelech playing with Boychuk, you could see Pelech playing with Mayfield. This lineup is very interchangeable. Very interchangeable, meaning guys can move up and down on the wings. Defense pairs can flip-flop as far as, do you have Ryan Pulock and Adam Pelech together, or do you have Ryan Pulock with Nick Leddy and Adam Pelech with Johnny Boychuk? Something like that. They're very interchangeable. So I just put these lines together. Don't, take them for what they are. They can move a lot. That's to say the least. There are also some, I think, roster spots up for grabs on this team, meaning that we could see some younger players potentially take a roster spot from veterans, potentially depending on how the preseason goes. For right now, these are what I have the lineup as. Top line, Anders Lee, Matt Barzal, and Josh Bailey. Eberle could end up on that top line and Bailey gets dropped to the second, but again, very interchangeable. Barzal's been incredible since coming into the league. Anders Lee has turned into an incredibly good player as well. And then Bailey, I think, is one of the more underrated guys in the NHL, just as far as he's such a consistent point producer, and no one really talks about him. So that's going to be a really fun top line to watch, I think. Second line, Anthony Beauvillier, Brock Nelson, and Jordan Eberle. Again, we could maybe see Beauvillier and Barzal end up together and Nelson go up with Lee. It's very movable, this lineup. Honestly, one of the more movable lineups in the league, I think, and certainly of all these previews that I've done so far. I've never seen I don't think I've seen a lineup quite like this that is this good of a lineup, but guys don't have distinct, set spots that they're necessarily going to be. We could see a lot of interchanging going on. Again, that goal scoring offense wise, that's a pretty darn good second line as well. Brock Nelson can put up 50 plus points. I think we're going to see Beauvillier on a fresh new contract now. Bridge deal that just got signed. He was an RFA. I think we're going to see a big year out of him. I think he reaches the 25 goal mark this year. It's time for him to take that next step in his development now. And Jordan Eberle, veteran guy at this point, but really solid veteran player. Again, a guy I think we'll see 20 to 25 goals out of. Third line, now this, I have a very veteran third line right now. The Islanders could go in a completely different direction and make this a very young third line if they wanted to. However, with the focus on team defense that they now have and with Barry Trotz as the coach, I think they're more likely to go veteran than young, meaning Andrew Ladd, who's returning from ACL surgery this past year. He's skating again. In the reports that I've read, he's back skating, doing hockey activities. So he could, looks like he could be ready to go for the start of the season. Derek Brassard, they signed. He's had a really rough last couple of years. Derek Brassard has not had a good time the last few years. This is probably his last chance to do something. He just signed a 1-year deal. To be the third line, have a shot at being the third line center. And then Leo Komarov, his second season with the Islanders will be this year. And then you get to their fourth line, which I still think is one of the best fourth lines in the entire NHL. Matt Martin, Casey Cizikas, and Cal Clutterbuck. I do not think you break that lineup at all. They're phenomenal together. Third line, I think, is where there's a lot of question marks. You could potentially see Josh Ho-Sang and Michael Del Col taking spots there. Maybe some younger guys, Oliver Wahlstrom or Kiefer Bellows potentially, if they're, they could potentially come up and take a roster spot from a veteran guy. If somebody's dropping out of this lineup, it's probably going to be Andrew Ladd or Komarov or Brassard. It's going to be somebody off of this third line. You're going to keep this tremendous fourth line together, and this third line is going to be where there are open roster spots in training camp. Overall, forward-wise, I think this team's pretty good. There's not huge offensive production, although I think Barzal will have a better year this year than he did last year. He only had 62 points last year after having, I think it was 85, if I remember correctly, his rookie year. So I'd like to see him get back up into that point per game area more than having 62. And I think there's potential for more offense out of Beauvillier, more offense out of Eberle, and even more offense maybe out of Anders Lee, who only had a good year last year, but only 50 points. We could see him up near 65, 70, I think. Defensively, putting these defense pairs together was honestly pretty difficult. I just went by average ice time from last season because I think, much like the forward groups, any of these guys could play with any of the other guys on the other side. I have Nick Leddy and Ryan Pulock based on ice time as the top pair. Adam Pelech and Johnny Boychuk is the second pair, and then Devon Taves and Scott Mayfield is your third pair. Overall, pretty solid defense group. Very good defensively. Most of them, actually, they were all plus players last season, and most of them were pretty pretty high plus players, especially Pelech, Pulock, and Mayfield actually plus 18 last year. That's a good year for him, and 20 points, and he's more of a defensive guy. So, I think you got some good offense offensive defensemen there. Ryan Pulock, especially Adam Pelech, I think you'll see even more offense from. Nick Leddy can produce points. And then you've got the more defensive guys, Mayfield, Boychuk. Devon Taves, I think, only played 48 games last year and had 19 points. So figure he's probably, he'll play, assuming health, the full season this year. He could be up near 40 points. Could be a good year for this team defensively if these guys continue to play the way that they did last year. And then in goal, we have Semyon Varlamov coming over from Colorado and Thomas Greiss still there to back him up. Robin Lehner went off to Chicago in free agency, no longer there. That, I think, is going to hurt. I do not trust Varlamov at all. I have never been a big Varlamov fan. I don't trust him. He never really was the guy for any good, maybe one or two good seasons in Colorado, but couldn't stay healthy, was never really the guy that led that team anywhere. Wasn't when they went to the playoffs last year, it was Grubauer in goal. It wasn't Varlamov. So I'm not a huge Varlamov guy, and I think they have downgraded at goaltender. So I think that's going to be something to watch this year. Like I said, we have potential for some extra players to get in. Josh Ho-Sang and Michael Del Col both will be looking for full-time NHL jobs this year, meaning knocking one of these guys out of the lineup. Tom Kuhnackel's still there and could be looking for a bottom six spot. Ross Johnston could be looking for a fourth line spot as a tough guy, although with Matt Martin in the lineup, Johnston's kind of expendable. But if Martin gets hurt, then I think you would see Ross Johnston come in and fill that spot. And then you have prospects like Oliver Wahlstrom and Kiefer Bellows who could potentially come in and steal roster spots at a young age. Defensively, Thomas Hickey right now looks like the number 7, the extra defenseman. And then I have Noah Dobson's name down. First-round pick from a couple years ago. Interesting to watch. Is he ready? Evan Bouchard was taken right before him, and it looks like Evan Bouchard's going to find a home on Edmonton's defense this year with the Oilers. Now, Edmonton's defense is in a lot worse shape than the Islanders is, but maybe Dobson could come in and really push these guys and maybe take a roster spot. I think he would have to have a phenomenal preseason and look extremely NHL ready and improve to take a roster spot. He's only 19. I think the best thing for Dobson would be to let him continue to develop, but we'll see. But anyway, for a team that was this good last year, I think there's a lot of competition in camp this year, and I don't see them repeating exactly what they did last season. I don't think they're going to get that level of goaltending. Robin Lehner had a Vezina level season last year. I thought should have won the Vezina. I know Vasilevsky got it, but I thought Lehner should have gotten the Vezina. I don't think you're going to get that from Semyon Varlamov. I just don't. And I think that in a division where the margin of error is so small as the Metro this year, where you have all these teams fighting for playoff spots and not that much separating them as far as talent goes, I think that could be a big problem for this team. And all it's going to take for them is a little bit lacking defensively, and this team goes from a second-place team to a 5th or 6th-place team in my mind. So they're going to be an interesting team to watch. I think it's really hard to tell how good they're going to be. They could be really, really good. They could be really disappointing, or they could end up somewhere in between. It's tough to tell. But that whole Metro division is going to be really, really fun to watch this year to see how these teams all turn out. But with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.